Okay, and we're live. Let me just make my posts where I need to make them. Boom, like so. And then boom, also on Patreon, like so. Press publish. There we go. So I believe we are live. It's a weird time to go live if you live in this hemisphere. I think a lot of people might still be at work, but I had some stuff to do, and also I say, you know what, let me go a little bit earlier today, cater to some of the people who tend to miss my live streams because of the timing that I have them at. But, and it just occurred to me that this is unlisted. I forgot to change that part. So let me make it public now, and that should get more people into it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you can see on top of the screen, we have a little Tiltify embed for the Creators for Palestine Fund. Please be sure to check out the link in the description to show some support. We are very, very close to the goal of $1 million, and I'm very excited to see it happen. And I'm hoping that, my audience can do their part to raise that $1 million for the PCRF, for the MAP, for the UNRWA, and for Heal Palestine. So it's been a while since I've been live. It's been a minute. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Welcome to yet another live stream of consciousness. I tend to just come on and dump out some of the thoughts and ideas that I've had and the cool things that I've seen. And it's been like the last one was in March, I think, either February or March. And a lot has happened since then. Um, Certain moments have passed that I wanted to talk about on live because I don't really get any other opportunity to talk about certain things. Like, I'm not like a media analysis person, so I would never make a video covering a particular piece of media. But I recently watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and I also, well, a while ago watched Dune Part 2, and I had thoughts on both of them, but I held it off for the live stream, and we're still holding it off a little bit. Um, I have some stuff to do in a little bit, so I know I say this like every time, but I really can't stay on for too long. But I did want to take the chance to go live and to raise some money and chat for a little bit. There's actually another bigger creator live stream happening on Friday, if I remember correctly, with people like the Try Guys and Smosh and Hassan and all the big creators. They're doing a stream, um, and so obviously people are gonna check that one out. But I said, let me do my own little thing here, get some money into the pot for Palestine. Again, the link is in the description, and you could also scan the QR code on the screen. Yes, it has been a while. Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing, by the way? So, to update, I think from the last stream, I said that I was reading. What did I say I was reading? I said I was reading Sacred Economics and something else. What was the other thing? Oh, and Anarchy, a graphic guide. Well, obviously, Anarchy, a graphic guide was a very quick read. I mean, it has pictures. But Sacred Economics, I actually took a break from reading because I had other things that I wanted to research and write about and focus on, such as the Organized Anarchy video, the States video, all those things ended up taking time away from reading that. And it's not, I don't want, Sacred Economics is not exactly a casual read, especially as I feel like there are aspects of economics that I'm still trying to grasp. And there's so much information about economics that, you don't, there's so much propaganda so much information. They just don't know where to start, what is accurate, what is not accurate, especially when you get to some of the topics that the author talks about in Secret Economics. The author is Charles Eisenstein, right? So I put that down for a little bit. My friend got me a copy of the original, the first Dune book, the one that parts one and two of the movie are based on. And I have been dragging my way through that. And I'm really disappointed to say I've been dragging my way through it. But it's mostly because I've had a lot of difficulty sort of being present lately. And I really need to be present in order to read and to really get into a fictional world as deep and engaging and captivating as Dune. And I say it's deep and engaging and captivating, then also at the same time, um, sorry to all the Dune heads in the audience, but it can be a little bit dry to read sometimes, for me at least. There's a lot of conversations that kind of go on and on and on. And I appreciate the sort of court intrigue of it that kind of comes into play between some of the dialogues. But at the same time, I feel like things are happening, but they're happening very, very slowly. So I'm not sure. I picked up the first one. My friend got it for me with the intention of eventually reading the original six books. But at this rate, I don't really see myself reading all six of them, or at least not in any, you know, any kind of piece like time span. I'll probably finish this one because I started reading this one in like March, and it usually doesn't take me this long to finish books. But then also the first copy I got before my friend got it for me, I got a copy from the library, and that one had a really really fine text, so it was very hard to get through it. And then also whenever I do take a chance to read, oh, there's a lizard on the wall. Yeah, and every time I do take a chance to read, I end up falling asleep because I just get so tired. Um, so the text being fine didn't help either. So I got that library book in like March, and I made my way through it, making my way through it. Eventually, my friend gets me the book, so I return the library book and I get my own copy of the Dune. And that one is a bit. I like the print of that one a little bit better. That's the version that I have on the thumbnail, and so just kind of making my way through that one now. But it's taken me a while, and I feel like it may take me some time to eventually get around to reading all the other books too. Let's see what people are saying. Have I read The Three Body Problem? Oh, I've been hearing a lot about it. You see, before there was even this buzz about the Netflix show, I actually had it in my it was on my radar. I hadn't quite put it on my to read list yet, but it was on my radar to eventually check out because I heard there was this really complex and multi-layered sci-fi, and I like sci-fi. I like those sorts of things. So I was interested. I was intrigued. But compared to some of the other books that I had to read and stuff, I really wasn't. It wasn't a priority. Like it was mildly interesting to me, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I have to read this now. You know. Oh, someone's been trying to learn foraging recently. That is tough. Tough but worth it. Oh yeah, Lee says Dune is a hard read in good times. Only got through it by audiobook. Yeah, so sometimes when I'm having trouble getting through a book, I would pick up the audiobook and try to read it like that, read along kind of thing to stay focused. But with Dune, I was really trying to like challenge myself to just be focused, be present, and make my way through it, submerge myself in the world like I used to when I was younger, picking up. I used to be picking up six books because I was the maximum amount of books you could get from the library on your library card. I used to be picking up six books, reading them before the 2 weeks was up. I think they extended it from 2 weeks to 4 weeks eventually, but yeah, I used to be picking up six books and reading them in the span of a couple days. Now it's taken me a really long time to get through doing. The Culture series. I don't think I've heard of the Culture series. You'll have to let me know who that author is. Have I tried reading the June graphic novel? No, but I actually read the Invincible omnibus recently. I've been reading, or I read all the Invincible books. So that's the most recent graphic novel that I've read. And that one was, oh, what a story. It's still in the back of my mind up to now, you know? Is the new Monkey movie good? Yeah, we'll get we'll get to that because I do have some thoughts. I don't want to get too much into spoilers. But I just want to say for the record that I was a Planet of the Apes fan before it was cool. I see now it's popping off on TikTok and people making edits of Caesar and all these different things. I just want to say, years now I've been rating the Planet of the Apes trilogy as one of the best, if not the best, trilogy in modern times. 13 Survival Strategies for Africans in America by Anthony T. Browder. Have not heard of it. I will check it out. Culture Series by Ian M. Banks. Yep. Yeah, sometimes I wish I could go back to, being a child and just being able, I guess having the free time was part of it as well. And also not having unrestrained access to technology. So I was just, you get some time on the computer and it's, the family computer, whatever, or you get a little bit of TV time and you had to kind of ration the TV time. You had to pick what show you want to watch, or what shows you want to watch. And then the rest of the time, I mean, I was homeschooled, so I used to finish my schoolwork very, very early. And when I was done, get my computer time, get some TV time, and but also partially because my one of my curriculums, my first curriculum was very reading based, and also because I just loved books. I just spent a lot of time occupying my time with books, and when I wasn't reading, I was drawing, and it hurts to say that I have not drawn anything in a very long time. Do I garden? Evolve, of course I garden. I actually, so I'll give you all a little garden updates because I think I gave you all an update last time. So when I was gardening, I had some when I started gardening. I think I started with just some pigeon peas and small leaf thyme, that kind of thing. But eventually I upgraded. I have a papaya tree growing. I have well, a five finger tree, which is like star fruit for the Americans. I have I have a lemon tree, I have a lime tree, I have a sour cherry tree, I have more sweet potato. But the thing about the sweet potato is I don't know how to grow it. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Because I've had one growing for a year now, and I dug it up just to see how much I was getting. Um, and there was this one like shriveled up tuber, and that was it. There weren't any like I was expecting to pull up like a whole mother load, and it just wasn't that, and I was very disappointed by that. Um, but I have sweet potato. I recently harvested some plantains, so I have that. I have a lot of pineapple plants. They take some time to grow, but with it, I have a couple of sorrel plants that reseeded themselves. I have a peanut plant, even though I don't eat peanuts. I have some tomato plants. I have a passion fruit plant and a mango tree and a soursop tree. And yeah, so that's what's been happening with the garden. What software I'm using to do this stream? I'm using OBS Studio, and I'm animating my face with a program called Viado Tube Mini. So that's VEADO Tube Mini, as in MINI. Tube as in YouTube. Will I ever make a video talking about black reactionaries in the Caribbean and how they hold progress back? A long time ago. Well, I still have it in my video ideas mega list, but it's like this video on the psychology. It was going along with the theme that I have on my channel of doing the psychology of videos, even though they're not technically about like psychology as an academic discipline. Um, I was gonna do a video called "The Psychology of Blackness," and I was gonna talk about, concepts like the Black Anglo-Saxons, talking about Black conservatives, talking about all these different things, and reactionaries are definitely a part of that. So I feel like I had to cover that at some point. I'll get to it eventually. I find Conquest of Bread boring. It's my first anarchist book I'm reading. Is this a good introduction book to anarchism? Yeah, Conquest of Bread was the first anarchist book I read because that was the meme at the time. Get bread pill, you have to read the Conquest of Bread. And it is boring, in my opinion. In fact, I don't even think it's Kropotkin's best work, but it gets gassed up like it's the anarchist version of the Communist Manifesto. I'm actually in the process currently of finding um how you call it, like the best introduction, like the best book to get someone introduced to anarchism. Because some of the books I see recommended are not good at all. Um, I think another book I read really early on that was a decent intro for me was Anarchy Works by Peter Luce. Anarchy: A Graphic Guide was actually a really good read. Um, I'm making my way through At the Cafe by Eric Maltester right now. I find that to be a really creative and enjoyable read. So I'm able to read that casually. I mean, the chapters and stuff are short too, so it's easy to get through. And the text as a whole is pretty short. Um, Strangers in a Tangled Wilderness has an intro, I think, called Life Without Law. That one is also a pretty good intro, in my opinion. But I still have to, I'm going through like all the different books. Like Colin Ward has a book called Anarchy in Action. I have to check that. I have to read it first to see if it's a good intro. Anarchism, an Anarchist Program by Eric Maltester. Those are good intros too. But I'm still making my way through to figure out what is the best intro for like a general audience. Obviously, there will be specific introductions that might appeal to specific subsets of the population, but to find like a generalist introduction that I could recommend, kind of tough right now. Favorite anime? I don't have a favorite anime. I'm not an anime guy, but I've seen a couple anime. So I've seen One Punch Man. I've seen, what do you call it? The first anime I ever watched actually was Sword Art Online, which is kind of embarrassing to say now. But yeah, One Punch Man. I really like Baki because just of how ridiculously corny it was. I watched Chainsaw Man. That was interesting. I can't say I'm the biggest fan, but to say like the big ones though, like surprisingly, I haven't really watched many of the big ones. Like I haven't seen, Attack on Titan. I haven't seen um what's the other big ones like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach. Like I haven't seen those. My accent is from Trinidad and Tobago, specifically Trinidad, but it's only one of several Trinidadian accents. Because if you ask a Trinidadian, they would say, "Oh, you don't really sound Trini," or you know, have yet to. People still have to understand the diversity that accents come in. And for right now, I think people are starting to come around to that, but there's still this idea of there's like this one Trini accent and everything else is a deviation. Like the Cornfont accent, for example. But I want to get into all that right now. Will I be making a tuba apology video for the sweet potato? Hmm. I'll apologize when the tubers do what they're supposed to do. I tried to grow peppers, but the birds keep eating the pepper trees, the pepper leaves. Um, I'm trying not to do this thing where I spend the entire stream like catching up to chats, but I just want to grab a couple interesting questions here. Um, the Kendrick diss track rabbit hole. I'll talk about that just now. I'll talk about that just now. Um, Mount Esther is Esther. The author of Anarchy: A Graphic Guide is, what's his name again? Clifford Harper. Yeah, Clifford Harper was the author of Anarchy: A Graphic Guide. And Anarchist FAQ, it's a good, it's a decent introduction. I wouldn't call it an introduction. It's more like a reference book. Like you wouldn't sit down and read an entire encyclopedia. You wouldn't sit down and read an entire dictionary. But if you want to find like a particular answer to a question, that's a good place to check. And even then, you have to take the question and realize, oh well, anarchists may disagree on this answer because remember this is still written by one person or one group of people, and so their perspectives will differ from others. And I know I think mutualists have some critiques of some of the things in an anarchist FAQ, and it definitely has like an anarchist communist leaning. So you can't really expect a necessarily fully synthesist perspective from it all the time. I think some of the answers to the questions definitely vary in quality, but it's still a good reference that I do recommend from time to time. One of my favorite parts about Anarchy works as an introduction is that it takes the time to actually challenge, to ask certain questions. Um, like it asks things like, you know, questions of, what engenders the isolation of anarchist projects? Why is it that, they're how can those on the outside provide effective solidarity to anarchist projects? How can we collaborate with others? It asks those tough questions. It doesn't necessarily answer all of them, but it does, because, not everybody has an answer for everything, but, you get some sense that, oh, we're challenging this here. How I got into anarchy, I'll have to direct you to one of my early Q&As, because I think that covers it. So the bottom line is an embarrassing introduction. This does count as VTubing, yeah, but it's more PNG tubing, I think it's called. Do I like Calypso? Yeah, I do. I do. I'm more of a old time Calypso kind of person. But I do, there are some soca hits. Let's see. Are there any anarchist authors or thinkers that you find problematic? I mean, yeah, all of them. Like, let me be real. Everybody has their thing, like Proudhon has his thing. Um, you know, like for example, my recent video, I referenced Bob Black, right? I don't particularly like Bob Black, but I do reference his stuff from time to time because I do find some of what he writes useful, but I don't particularly like him. Um, like everybody could call out and say there's something, problematic about them. Kropotkin had his issues, Bakunin had his issues. Yeah. When I can't stand Chomsky. I've never liked Chomsky. I didn't think Chomsky was a good introduction when I first got into anarchism, because Chomsky was never my introduction to anarchism. And up to now, I think he's a bad introduction to anarchism. I don't think he's an anarchist. Um, Sue me, crucify me. I don't really like Chomsky. Here, I can't say that I've kept up with the Stop Cop City movement because that's taken place in Atlanta and I'm in Trinidad. Um, so I can't really say that I've kept up with it. That I know what's going on like right now. If you want to keep up with that, I suggest checking out like FD's stuff because he would probably have at least some information that could guide that answer or guide your ability to answer that question. Have I? Yeah, I mean, I've watched Princess Mononoke. I've watched it several times. I've watched it to go to sleep sometimes. It's a very beautiful film. Um, Thoughts on ADOS? I don't like them. I feel like that's obvious. I don't want to talk about them too much because they're a psyop as far as I'm concerned. But needless to say, I don't like them, and they're extremely reactionary. Fiction, non-fiction, both. Favorite Caribbean dish? Um, hmm, lasagna. Nah, let me be serious. I had to say probably roti. Recently, I feel like I've matured into really appreciating Palau and really appreciating Callaloo. I mean, I've always liked Callaloo, but I especially like it now. And I feel like I should pull up some references to show you all what those things are. So, this is Callaloo, right? Yeah, I don't know if there's any consistent spelling, but it's Ugh. 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 This is not how I make it. This is not how anybody I know makes it. Right. This is more the consistency I'm talking about, right? It's kind of, you get a little bit of spice in it. You get this medley of flavors. Uh, but never with crab, though. I can't stand crab. I think crab is the most foolish thing that a human could attempt to eat. Well, one of. And I can't believe I have to go there, but, let's get a little bit controversial. I feel as though crab is a waste of time to eat because, I mean, for one, it's a crab. Like, what crab do you? And for two, it doesn't make sense. To me, it would make sense if the shell was edible, and that take that I give always tends to get a reaction from people. But to me, it only makes sense if the shell is like edible, but it's not. You have to like crack open the shell just to get this tiny sliver of meat, and to me, it's not worth it at all. Leave the crabs alone. Um, but yeah, so not caldo with crab, not for me. Um, yeah, so not caldo. Rather, yes, caldo. And the other thing is roti, right? Let me show you all roti, particularly with curry pumpkin and curry potato. But I don't like. I prefer when it's the open kind of roti. Like I'm not a big fan of the roti where it's just like rolled up as like a pie or whatever. Especially when for some reason there's some people who they make roti and they make it wrapped like wrap roti, and then they put like bone in it. Just don't make sense to me. As a poor student, I didn't even eat the chicken roti. I used to have just the plain, you know, in true vegan fashion, the plain curry potato and chana in my roti, right? Um, and up to now, I don't really eat curry chicken. I'm fine with just like roti with the curry pumpkin and the curry potato and chana. Like that's enough for me. Um, yeah, brother. Brother. Yeah, I'm gonna give my thoughts on the Planet of the Apes film just now. Um, favorite Caribbean dessert, ice cream. I mean, there's a particular ice cream spot that I can't shout out, but ice cream. How to explain caldo to Americans? It's just like I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. Hey, storytellers here. Yeah, yeah. Brother, no crap, please. And I've never had lobster. Never had it. I know it used to be like a poor man's food, and now it became like a rich man's food. And in any case, no thanks. Let's leave the roaches to the ocean and the ocean. You know what I'm saying? And you're right, Claudia. There can't be a perfect introduction. 1 second. All right. Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah, there can't be a perfect introduction to anarchism. You're right. There's no one particular book that's gonna do it for everybody. Why do I think people are monarchists? I'm assuming they played too much Crusader Kings. Can I briefly mention the weaknesses you feel Kropotkin had? I think, if I remember correctly, Kropotkin and Emma Goldman had a disagreement. Kropotkin was a little bit. He still hadn't, I think, undone some of his patriarchal conditioning. And so that kind of came out at one point. Ooh, I didn't answer the question. Um, Dalpuri or bust up shut? That's the real question. That's the real question. Hmm. Oh, Tomnas, just to quickly answer your question. Pan-anarchism isn't really a thing. You have like synthesis anarchism, and you have anarchism without adjectives, and you also have platformism, and then you have a specificism, a specificismo. So you could go and take a look at those and see what you think. And anarchist capitalists are not really anarchists. I mean, it's a sort of a one-on-one contention that anarchists have. Uh, is being against capitalism. But yeah, so bust up shut or Dalpuri. Question of the day. Right, so let me just give you a little bit of reference. It's called Bust Up Shut. I believe it's called that because it's supposed to look like a busted up shirt, as in a busted up shirt, and it just became Bust Up Shut because, Trinity. Right? So it's oh, my mouth is watering. We're supposed to have some roti this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. We're also supposed to be having pilau as well because it's a long weekend. Tomorrow is, gosh, what is it again? It's one thing and then the other thing. I can't remember which is which. All I know is it's a holiday. It's a long weekend, as in it's a 4-day long weekend. Trinidad calendar 2020 with holidays. Oh, okay. So I see my character's bouncing. Let me fix that. Yes. So tomorrow is both Indian Arrival Day and Corpus Christi. Because Corpus Christi is fallen on the same day as Indian Arrival Day, they've moved the Indian Arrival Day recognition this year to the 31st. So we get in Thursday off, we get in Friday off, we get in Saturday, and we get in Sunday. Hence the 4-day weekend. Beautiful. So for this long weekend, I'm having both pilau and roti. Needless to say, I won, right? So this is bus up shut, and then you have Dalpuri. Personally, in terms of like being able to reheat it and stuff, I prefer bus up shut to Dalpuri. Both of them, after a while, they get a little bit stale, a little bit hard, whatever. But when they're fresh, I will always pick up bus up shut over Dalpuri. Always, always. Like Dal bus up shut is my go-to for roti. Dalpuri is if you had no other choice. They're out of stock in the bus up shut kind of situation. Um, Colin asks, I recall you mentioned an eco-village project you had in the works in the server. Yeah, all I said about that was that it's a planned future project. There's not really any more details I can share beyond that. It's not even in the preliminary stages yet. It's at this point an idea in my head that I've yet to execute in any way. Because there's certain aspects of my personal situation that are in flux right now, and the resolution of that will determine what happens next for me. What happens next for that eco village project. Let's see, I feel like but yeah, I just showed the bus up shop. I'll show it again. Yes, it's side by side. Yeah, look. Dalpri and bus up shot. Dalpri and bus up shot. This is Dalpri. This is bus up shot. Dalpri is, made out of dal, and dal is like a particular, I think it's yellow split peas. Gosh, you'll test me right now. Dal. Yeah, pulses. Right. So it's kind of, and a pulse is A legume. There we go. I remember that. So yeah, it's like a pea bread. If I were to butcher the concept of bread or expand the concept of bread. Speaking of the concept of bread, I recently had an argument about the cube theory of food because I had someone try to argue with me that lasagna should be considered a sandwich because according to the cube theory of food, it's you have like the starch on top and then the filling in the middle and then the starch in the bottom, and because lasagna is that like repeated over and over again, it should be considered a sandwich. They're also telling me that like hot dog is a taco, and that if you don't cut the bread all the way on a piece of hops bread, to show you what a hops bread is, I don't know if y'all know what that is. It's like a bun pretty much, right? I prefer the whole wheat hops bread, by the way. I really like the white one. I used to have it when I was younger, but we stayed away from white flour. But yeah, so the hops bread. This person was telling me you cut the hops bread open, but you don't open it. You don't cut it all the way through. All of a sudden, oh, it's not a sandwich. It's actually a taco, because the taco is this thing with like sides and then thing in the middle, and then add some and then another person in that discussion piped up to say that, oh, well, cereal is actually a soup. And then somebody else was like, no, it's actually a salad. And then I got really frustrated because I feel like my argument is really that I understand that you're trying to create something of a platonic form upon which all of the food is derived. So you're saying it's like the platonic form is like a sandwich, and then all other things derive from that concept of sandwich, right? So that's where from that platonic ideal of sandwich, you get lasagna, and you get like a BLT, and you get this, that, and the other. I wholeheartedly disagree on the grounds that also the person trying to tell me that doubles is a sandwich. And that I could not abide by. Nothing about it to me resembles a sandwich. This is for doubles. This is doubles for anybody who doesn't know. This is not how doubles is usually served. So I think this picture is a terrible example. When you get doubles on the side of the road, this is not how I've ever seen it served. You tend to see it served as, this is a terrible example of doubles. You tend to see it served as, right, two overlapping, how you call it again? What do you call the thingies, right? The yellow thingies, right? The two yellow thingies, they're supposed to be overlapping. Barra, right? Right? So BRRA, right? So it's BARRA. Sorry, I can't spell. Right? So the two thingabara, you have them overlapping, almost like a Venn diagram. You put the chickpeas on top, then you put your sauces. Obviously, you have to have your shadow bunny sauce. Obviously, you have to have your sweet sauce. Obviously, you do not put your cucumber in it. I always tell them don't put cucumber. And me personally, I'm not really a pepper person, so I just say, don't put any pepper. Right? And I have like that, boom, 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 eats it delicious. Right? At no part in this, for me, is this a sandwich. How? How? Right? And then they say, oh well, you know what, when you have it to go, it's not open like this. They wrap it up. But even when it's wrapped up, it doesn't wrap up like a sandwich. It's something completely distinct. And my issue with the cube theory of food is that it tries to unify all dishes by this taxonomical system. And the taxonomical system is flawed. The thing about taxonomies, I feel like all taxonomies to some extent are flawed. And I think this is just the worst taxonomy of the ones that I've stumbled upon. And those are my thoughts on the matter. I feel like I'm dragging it at this point. Let me check the chat again. What's happening? Oh yeah, Aditya. I think it's Aditya. We in Northern India love the dal roti and pulao as well. Yeah, I mean, when Indo-Caribbean people were coming to Trinidad, or coming to Guyana, and coming to Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean, they came from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. They came from the northern parts of British India. So, if I remember correctly, yeah, Uttar Pradesh, Western Bihar, and then you also have some people, but then again, they didn't come to Trinidad, right? The people in the English-speaking Trinidad, English-speaking Caribbean came from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, right? So, you know, it's no surprise to me that those cuisines would be similar. Obviously they would have to adapt certain things in terms of preparation out of, necessity, but yeah, it's always cool to see the unifications and diversions of people. Can you surf in Trinidad? I mean, I've body surfed before, but to say that you could go ahead and I haven't really seen people surf, but I feel like some people do, but I couldn't tell you honestly. Let me just go and answer the door real quick again. I'm right back. Right, okay. Oh gosh. So somebody says, hurry up on your opinions on the monkey movie. Yes. Yes, sir. All right. Let me get to it. Okay, so Planet of the Apes. What a beautiful, beautiful trilogy. The original trilogy, you had Rise, no, you had Dawn, then you had Rise, then you had War, right? Wait. I always mix up the order. I thought it was okay, I think it's Rise, then Dawn, then War. Yeah, it's looking like it's Rise, then Dawn, then War. Okay, fine, cool. Um, Best trilogy of all times, in my opinion. One of the best character arcs of all time. Um, Caesar, I mean, is he goated with the sauce? I would say so. Um, but regarding the recent movie, right, which is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I went and saw it by happenstance. I got an opportunity because things were looking like I was gonna have to wait a while to watch it, but thankfully I was able to go and see it. Right, so this is several hundred years after the first trilogy. I'm not gonna go too deep into spoilers, right? But it's several hundred years after the first trilogy. You have this new character now. His name is Noah. And for those who have seen the movie, I feel like the movie kind of missed an opportunity, right? And I'll try my best to dance around it. I'm not used to giving reviews of stuff, so if I accidentally spoil anything, whoops. Um, but my whole thing is the movie had an opportunity to sort of develop almost, and I know this is so typical of an anarchist to say this, but I think the movie misses chance to create an anarchist critique of hierarchy. Particularly, we see in the beginning of the film, this is in the first act of the film, you're seeing this stuff, right? So I don't feel like it's that bad to spoil it, right? You see the consequences in the film of the legacy that Caesar left behind. Okay, Caesar left behind a, a liberated, yes, in some ways, a liberated ape society, but that ape society was under his rule, right? Caesar was the sole Caesar of ape society, right? And by the end of war, he reaches the promised land with his apes, and then he dies before he can really enter the promised land. The biblical allegory is through the roof, right? And you have this new character, Noah. Um, no relation, I assume, to the Noah of the Bible, but you have this character who grows up several hundred years after Caesar's passing, and the apes have split off now. You have all these different clans of the apes, and Noah's part of this eagle clan, right? Which is a group of apes that, they spend their time raising eagles, right? And then they have this initiation ritual where you go from being a boy ape to a man ape. You grow some fur in your chest or whatever the case may be. You have to go and get an egg, right? You got to get an egg from the nest of an eagle. So you have to climb up on one of the decrepit structures from the previous human society, get an egg, bring it back, whatever. Conflict ensues. Some this one I kind of get into spoilers, but for a particular reason, another ape clan, and it turns out to be more than just an ape clan. It turns out to be the kingdom of the title, which is ruled by this ape here, um, Proxima Caesar, right? They raid Noah's clan and they kidnap all the apes, they kill a bunch of the apes, they do a bunch of really bad stuff to the apes, right? And as we go through the story, we meet some characters, right? So we meet an orangutan who is part of the Order of Caesar, or something like that, some kind of Caesar clan. And at this point, you proceed in here at your own peril. There might be spoilers. I'm trying my best to avoid them, right? But anyway, so this orangutan, I forget his name at this point in time, but he's part of this like basically Caesar Preservation Society, and his whole thing is that he is trying to preserve the meaning um of what the apes of what Caesar represented. Apes together strong, ape no kill other ape, that kind of thing, right? And those were powerful messages. Caesar was really trying to lay down a message, right? But when we see the results of that message, the consequence of that message, over generations, that message gets corrupted. So apes together strong goes from being a liberatory rallying call to being basically like a fascist like call to action, you know? Because at this point, Proxima Caesar has taken that slogan, Apes Together Strong, and turned it into a means of unifying the apes under his rule, conquering other ape tribes to get them under his kingdom in order to get them all to work for him in this common cause, and that common cause being to break open like this bunker that humans have, which has a bunch of stuff in it, right? So he corrupts the message apes together strong, turns it into this like unifying call. And then you also have, and I'm recapping right now and I'm trying to remember the movie, so I'm not reading the chat at the moment, but I'll get to it just now because I'm trying to get to my main thesis, right? And this is why I'm a writer and not like a live speaker, because if I was writing this I would have been a lot more succinct. um but So he corrupts that message. The ape no kill other ape. I mean, Caesar himself went back on the ape no kill other ape in the second movie because Caesar ended up having to kill Koba because Koba betrayed him and tried to turn his son against him and all these different things. Sort of created this war between the apes and the humans, right? That Caesar was trying his best to avoid, right? But the issue is, as great of a leader Caesar may be, at the end of the day, the form of leadership that he takes on, and I have some complicated feelings around the concept of leadership, right? Because there are different ways that you can conceptualize the concept of leadership. It can be a matter of just influence or whatever the case may be, right? But the point is that Caesar, as a leader, he ends up creating a political system in the sense that it is a way of organizing power within a society, right? He creates a political system where his role is one of absolute power and all others must fall in line, right? That's the blueprint that he leaves behind in his death, right? He also leaves behind that little diamond insignia from the window of his original house from back in the day, house he grew up in. But yeah, so speaking of, the orangutan actually has that necklace, that has that on his necklace, that particular symbol. So this orangutan is trying to preserve the messages of Caesar, but Caesar's actual blueprint, what Caesar left behind, his legacy, is what has it was open for corruption. I mean, you could say that all taglines are open to co-optation and corruption, right? Even the best of taglines are not immune to being co-opted, right? But I think the movie Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes missed its opportunity to have Noah go through that journey of realizing, this blueprint of leadership that Caesar left behind. Caesar tried his best, but that was the limitation of his liberatory ideology. The limitation of Caesar's liberatory ideology was that it left room for new forms of oppression to spring forth, this time in the form of Proxima Caesar and in all the other hierarchical clans that came into being, right? I mean, of course, you could also say, oh, well, dominant hierarchies are a part of ape society, the natural world, but suspend your disbelief, we're talking about conscious apes, right? And if humans are conscious enough to organize without hierarchy, then these super intelligent apes are also conscious enough to organize without hierarchy. And having demonstrated the flaws of the hierarchical model in this film, the film had a really brilliant opportunity to sort of usher in a new political form for ape society. I'm not even saying it has to be anarchism per se. I would have been fine with Noah being almost like a liberal figure in comparison to Caesar's more autocratic tendencies. Like if if Noah was just like, what we need to do, we need to have some democratic reforms. We need to create an ape democracy and have, each ape have a say so that there's no point in time where, these, yeah, at least, have ape majority rule rather than ape autocratic rule, right? But he doesn't do that. As far as I don't want to spoil the end of the movie because I already spoiled so much, but he doesn't do that, and I think that was a missed opportunity because the movie very clearly demonstrates the flaw with the blueprint that Caesar left behind, and how Caesar's message and ideals were taken to an extreme, corrupted in some ways, and just taken to the extreme with Proxima Caesar. And I think they missed the opportunity to have Noah not only critique that model of political organization, but also, having defeated that model of political organization, inspire the next generation of apes, which Noah represents. Because in a way, Noah was raised in a very sheltered environment, right? He didn't even know about Caesar until the orangutan told him about him, right? But he had this opportunity to usher in the next generation of apes that would challenge and question this gerontocracy and this autocracy that the ape societies had developed. And those are my thoughts on the matter. I could breathe for 2 seconds and I could start to read some of the comments. Autodidacts. In what sense? In what sense? I do get potentially like a feeling that they could have done more to establish the connection between like how after Caesar's absence, how the apes split off and how Proxima Caesar and his line came into being. But then again, I also appreciate the fact that they didn't show all that. That I could imagine what happened in those years since. I don't have to like have everything spelled out for me. I think having that room for like just imagination works for me personally. And yeah, Cosmic, even among regular apes, that dominant hierarchical structure is not always present. Yeah, you're right. Wow, I definitely need to check out the movie. Great review. Yeah, I mean, the movie is fun, right? I love Kingdom of Planet of the Apes. I love all the Planet of the Apes movies. It was a fun movie. I'm looking forward to seeing where this trilogy goes next, where this new trilogy is gonna go. Um, if they're gonna continue with Noah's story, because they did set up some things at the end that can go in an interesting direction. And even talk about what was happening with the humans all this time and stuff. But the main thing is, it was a good movie. Check it out. Thank you, movie reviewer, for the monkey movie review. I can go to work now. You're welcome, Ralph. Have a good day. Analyze the King Kong versus Godzilla movie next. Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. Actually, I haven't seen any of the King Kong or Godzilla movies yet. Still have to, still have to check that out. Um, Thoughts on Andor? I have not seen Andor. I've heard some good things about Andor, but have not seen it. I don't know who's. You know what I mean? I even go there. Did I analyze June? Yeah, I haven't gotten to June yet. I'm about to. Right? Have I seen the movie from the 60s? I saw the first movie from the Planet of the Apes. Right, so by the way, when I talk about the Planet of the Apes trilogy, I'm talking about the recent ones, like the 2010s ones. I'm not talking about the ones from like the 20th century. I did watch the first one of those a very, very long time ago. Like literally when I was a child, it was like on TV and I watched it. Didn't particularly like it. I thought it was okay. The twist at the end was very, it was very entertaining. But yeah, I'm not talking about those. I'm just talking about the ones that I love, which are the 2010s trilogy. Well, tell yes, yes. What a wonderful day. Yeah, that's one of the Proxima Caesar's taglines in the movie. Okay, so yeah, I heard Andor is very good. Yeah, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. Yeah, I heard the recent Japanese Godzilla movie. I think it's called Godzilla Zero, something like that. I heard that one was really good. All movies political. Yeah, everything is political. Um, I'm not Craig says, appreciate hearing you talk about media because your theory videos make me think you're an otherworldly prophet of revolution unstained by modern culture. Yeah, no. I'm just as much on TikTok as everybody else. Sometimes too much on TikTok. A little bit too much sometimes. The next movie on the chopping block is June Part 2. But let me just check and make sure I've like covered all my thoughts on uh okay, autodidact. I know that May is a character in Kingdom of Fantasy Apes. There's another thing about me. I forget the names of characters in movies and TV shows even after I've just watched them. May is the human, right? I feel like talking about May would be spoiling it a little bit too much. But I said my piece about what I wanted to say about the movie. Yeah, May was the human. That's what I thought. Let me check, make sure I have covered all my thoughts on Plants and Apes. Yeah, I covered everything. The other thing was on June, right? I mean, so many things you could talk about June, right? You could talk about power, you could talk about national liberation struggles, you could talk about religion and prophecy, you could talk about the role of the Bene Gesserits, all these different things that people who are more into it than me have gotten into. I'm kind of late to the party in covering these things. My main vibes on June Part 2 is that visually it was fantastic, and also I found it to be a very fascinating exploration of how liberation struggles can be corrupted and co-opted, right? And I'm seeing that even more as I'm reading the book, right? Because in a sense, like the Bene Gesserit, they set all this up well in advance. They were like, we're gonna plant the seeds here that we can co-opt later on when the situation calls fit, and that's what they did. You know, they waited. I mean, Paul was not supposed to be born a male. He was supposed to be born female and supposed to be married to Phaedra, and then their child was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach, but it didn't work out so because Jessica didn't want to listen to the Bene Gesserit ladies, and she went and said, like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. Um, and then Paul came around, and well, June Part One happened, and then June Part Two, right? I like how they changed Chani's character because when I saw in the book, Chani was like kind of boring, kind of like didn't really get that much to do. At least from what I've read so far. Again, I haven't finished it. From what I've seen so far, she has a very minimal role in the book compared to what she has in the movie. Like from the movie, from the jump, she's the main character. Not just because she's played by Zendaya, but that helps. But she actually serves as somewhat of a foil to Paul in this film, and I really appreciated that there was a sense of political diversity present in the Fremen society. We had people who believed that a Messiah would come, and then you had people who believe, we don't need to wait for a Messiah. Like we can free ourselves, kind of thing. Um, and unfortunately, one side ended up winning, and all of this culminates at some point with a human worm hybrid. Apparently, I haven't reached that far, but I think it was a good installment to the series, and I think it was a good demonstration or example of how leadership and how particular forms of leadership rather can end up manipulating an oppressed mass for their own ends. You know, if only Noah listened to the teachings of Dr. Umar, he would have known how to deal with me. Oh, oh, brother. Oh, brother. I tell you, if June was happier than Godzilla and Planet of the Apes was on King Kong's back, and they fight, I don't understand that. Planet of the Worms, yeah. Planet of the Apes and Planet of the Worms. Britt says, you mentioned TikTok, and I remember someone on TikTok plagiarizing your work word for word, bar for bar. They copied the video you did on the Bartimaeus. Just thought you should know. Oh my gosh, they copied my whole flow. Damn. I'm I, I'm sorry to hear that. I think somebody had mentioned that somebody was doing something on TikTok about like taking my stuff, but I can't recall. But damn, that sucks. um, I don't really. I mean, something I can really do about it. I just hope the person. I appreciate the message being put forward, but give credit where credit is due. I put in the work, the research, whatnot. Least you could do is say, by the way, I got this info from such and such. Copy my whole flow. But that's bound to happen at a certain point. What do I think? Good, specific questions, because I felt like I was floundering a bit there. What do you think about the organizational structure of the Fremen people? I think, I mean, I believe they were based on like the Bedouin, right? I believe they were based on the Bedouin people, at least significantly, according to Frank Herbert. That was a major influence for him, right? And so you have this sort of patriarchal society. You do have some matriarchal elements as well. They have certain women in certain elevated positions, particularly in the spiritual realm. You have the Reverend Mother of the Fremen society, where they have this really hierarchical sort of society developed, and obviously I don't appreciate that. You know, their harsh conditions seems to have bred a particularly brutal, almost brutal culture. You know, because like for example, you see in the end of the first movie where Paul doesn't want to kill what's his name, the guy who challenged him. And they're like, nope. Well, you know, that's how we do it. We do, you know, blood packs, and you know, you fight to the death, and that's just that. And that was the first time Paul ever killed somebody, right? And then I found this out from the books because this was not present in the movie. But in the books, after Paul kills that guy and he goes to the siege, the people are like, "Oh, by the way, this is that guy. This is that guy's wife and his child, and you are responsible for that wife and child now. Now, you could choose that wife to be, you know, your servant, or you could choose your wife that wife to become your wife, right? And in the book, Paul chooses for the wife to be his servant. And she's like upset about it because she's like, um, oh, you know, I'm still young. I'm still young. Like I could be your wife. It's kind of weird because if I recall correctly, in the book, Paul is like 15 or 16 or 17, somewhere around there. Um, and after he kills this guy, his wife is like, please either marry me or I have to be a servant. And he chooses to have her be his servant. Kind of, you know, I understand why they left that out of the movie. Um, and yeah, I feel like I'm conflating the book and the movie somewhat because that particular element in the book is what led me to believe, you know, led me to see the sort of patriarchal element of it. And I think I forgot in the process of reading the book, I forgot that in the movie, you're right, Chani does say that they're equal in feminine society. But I'm not, I feel as though their religious orientation toward the the pending uh deliverance of a Messiah really shot them in the foot, you know. As you know, we see, or as is implied to take place later on, you know, they are in fact able to rise up, and they are in higher, they're of greater numbers than is initially considered by the rest of galactic society. You know, they think the people from the outsiders tend to think, oh, there's nobody living in the southern part of the planet. And then it turns out actually there are millions of people, millions upon millions of Fremen in the southern parts of the planet. And all this time they're storing up water in order to terraform Arrakis, to terraform Dune, to turn it into, uh, you know, lush paradise. You know, the planetologist and stuff was helping them with that. And all that's done. You know, I don't think that ever happened. I don't think that ever happens in the book series. I could be wrong, but I don't think in the book series they ever actually accomplish their goal. They just end up, as Paul's visions imply, committing like this galactic holy war against like a bunch of the planets and killing a bunch of people. So, you know, not cool. They could have freed themselves. But this story is a bit more interesting. I think the author and Fremen be the surviving descendants of Native Americans. I don't think so, you know. From what I recall, the Fremen were actually they actually moved planets several times in the history of Dune lore, right? And their religion was actually originally, I think it was called Zen Sunism or something like that. Zen Sunni, right? It was the domination of Buddhism, right? And then it became like the Fremen uh religious ideology, right? Um, and when Paul, yeah, his thing became the religion became more popular, and da, 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 da. I don't think there's anything. Native American about it. There's also Zen Sunni Catholicism. Oh, I don't know about that. But yeah, I knew about the Orange Catholic Bible and all those different things, the hybrid religions and stuff. But yeah, I feel like let's see. Do you think it's good to change patriarchy part? Or doesn't really matter? I feel like I don't mind. I honestly don't mind when adaptations change things. Um, I think the main point of the Fremen's role in the main point of the Fremen in the story is that they have to be this patriarchal society, or this society where you kill a man and you have to take his wife and child. Like I don't think that's like a relevant or a necessary part of the story. Um, so it's fine to me if they change it or whatever. Then again, I didn't grow up with it. I don't have like the level of connection. So maybe, there's more to it and that's an essential part of the door. Da, 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 da. I don't know. But I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. Don't you maybe wonder if religion and anarchist society can mix? Well, it depends on how you define religion, right? I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get into that right now. I do have to leave soon, but I do have to cover. Wait, Judaism is in June? I had no idea. Let me check that. I had no idea that there was Judaism in June. Did it really like stay intact for the entire like several thousand year period? That's why I can't stand fandom.com. There's so many like you gotta close a set of right. So I get all that out of the way. Now I could probably like read the article. Okay, interesting. Hmm, interesting. Wow. So in this story, in this law, Sunni Islam and Zen Buddhism unify, and then boom, Judaism stays the same. I always like to see how like alternate future like sci-fi stuff, how they ended up tackling religion, because you don't see it too often, right? In a lot of sci-fi, they kind of like forget the religion exists, or if religion does exist, it's like relegated to like certain quote unquote primitive alien species. Um, but I mean, it takes center stage here, and if I recall correctly, it also takes center stage in the three body problem, which again I have not read or watched yet, but I do watch a little bit of YouTube, and I saw a video about it, so that's how I know that that's a thing. It's referring to American culturally racial laws in the Native Americans. Oh, is that where Frank Herbert was inspired? I didn't know. I'm not too familiar with all that law. If I know anything about Dune, is that it answers the question if characters would still love them if one of them was a worm. Real, 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 real. Am I gonna watch Rebel Moon parts 1 to 6? I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. Make a space opera about Rastas. I feel like you're saying that because you think that Rastafarianism is a relevant, like, religious practice in Trinidad. It's very obscure. And if I was Jamaican, that would hit a little bit better, I'll tell you, but it's not. It's not accurate. But it would be cool because the Rastafarians do have that whole thing about the Hail Selassie and Second Coming, all these different things. So it'd be really cool to see how Rastafarianism might evolve in a sci-fi setting. Like what if they were the real religion all along? you know. What else did I want to talk about? Because I want to cover a couple more things real quick, real quick. As we're talking about June, it reminds me that I wanted to touch on culture real quick, right? I was recently reminded of the tragic reality that people these days are getting sucked into cults and into high control groups out of this desire to find community. You know, like conspiracy people, they're really just looking for a hobby, you know, a social connection. And I mean, cults have been doing this since forever, you know, preying on people who are vulnerable and not having their social needs met. And it's just a reminder that, you know, it's something we have to look out for and actively work to create the alternatives to, so that people don't get sucked into those situations, you know? And even in our own organizing, we have to make sure not to make sure to avoid cultic tendencies. You know, I had a thought on OPSEC recently, like security culture, and you know, I feel like in some ways it does get misconstrued by people who are unfamiliar with it, right? The thing about OPSEC is that you don't want to OPSEC yourself into irrelevance. You know, you don't want to become so guarded that you just become this hyper insular clique, shielded from connection with people. And for those who don't know what OPSEC is, it's short for operational security. It refers to the practice of maintaining the security of sensitive information, you know, like people's identities or activities, things that could bring attention and the action of law enforcement. And by the way, I don't condone illegal actions, just putting that out there. I'm just explaining what operation security is. But as you can see, it's really meant to apply to illegal activity and activity that could put people in danger. You know, you don't want to maintain such a stringent security culture that you apply OPSEC in every single context, because that insularity can create some potentially dangerous interpersonal dynamics that could lead to the foundations of a cult. You know, if we want to prefigure anarchist societies, we want to maintain a sensible level of transparency and facilitating, you know, the free flow of information, to prevent those sort of power dynamics from coming into play. So even as we are organizing to sort of provide alternatives to people so they don't get fall so that they don't get sucked into high control groups or cultic groups, we have to make sure not to create those conditions ourselves. Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy. I will add that as well to my reading list. I actually got several recommendations today. So I got the Culture series by Ian M. Banks recommended to me. I got From the Browder File, Volume 2, Survival Strategies for Africans in America by Anthony T. Browder. And I got the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson. So if you have any more recommendations, I could also drop those there. But those are the ones that I wrote down. There are probably more that I missed. Anything else I wanted to touch on real quick? I did want to. I mean, the title of this video is The Curse of Knowledge, right? And that's just something I wanted to spend a brief moment on. I feel like the more that I write and the more that I research for this channel, like the further I am potentially alienating myself from others, you know? But at the same time, I feel like I'm also opening myself up to opportunities to connect with others and share things with others that they may not be able to find anywhere else, right? What my concern is in terms of my alienation from others is that I don't want to fall into this trap of, or you know, I know something or I've known something for a while, everybody else must know it as well. You know, nobody. I try to know a little bit about a couple different things, and a lot about a few things, but nobody knows everything and nobody can know everything. And even living and breathing something, one, it doesn't mean that you know everything about it, and two, it doesn't mean that others have even heard of it, right? And this is exactly the concept of the curse of knowledge. It's not just like a title I put on it. It's a Wikipedia article that I was reading the other day. Right? It's the cognitive bias that occurs when an individual who is communicating with others assumes that others have information that is only available to themselves, assuming they all share a background and understanding. This bias is also called by some authors the curse of expertise. For example, in a classroom setting, teachers may have difficulties they cannot put themselves in the position of the student. A knowledgeable professor might no longer remember the difficulties that a young student encounters when learning a new subject for the first time. This curse of knowledge also explains the danger behind thinking about student learning based on what appears best to faculty members as opposed to what has been verified with students. And this came up in my research on my video on education, which is coming up in a little bit. Um, by a little bit, I mean month after next month. Because next month's video is on globalization. But I was thinking about this and I was realizing that I was casually sort of dropping concepts, and I got one or two comments about it. I realized I was kind of dropping concepts casually, and not all the time I was explaining it, right? I have to keep in mind that with every video that I put out, it could be the first video of mine that somebody sees. And I always think of my videos as like this long-standing, continuous project from the very first video I ever published. But the very first video I ever published was when I had like less than 100 subscribers. Very few people from then from now, from then, most obviously are not from back then. So most, and even then, people who have been around a long time have not seen most of my videos. So even when I feel like I've established certain things or explained certain things, I have to remind myself constantly, you have to like re-explain this and re-explore this. And so I try to reference previous videos as much as I can, but you want to keep things contained as well. So I try to put the explanations in the videos too, but I can still fall into a situation like this classic XKCD comic. Silica chemistry is second nature to us geochemists, so it's easy to forget that the average person probably only knows the formulas for olivine and one or two feldspars. And quartz, of course. Of course. I'm, I'm sorry. But yeah, even when they're trying to compensate for it, there is a certain loss of expert. One second. All right. Hey, people donating, man. Um, y'all, gotta go. I just realized the time is 4:30, and yeah, this is a classic. I mean, all XKCD comics funny. I can click Arios. Yeah. So I do have to get going. I have some things I have to do, and thankfully I was able to cover most, not all of the things that I want to talk about. I'll remind you all to, venture outside the echo chamber, keep yourself familiar with other points of view. Um, I mean, even up to now, also don't like assume too much familiarity, even with topics you're familiar with. Like up to now, like I've been learning about anarchism for over 5 years, and I'm still learning new things about the history and the theory, and I'm still having to unpack and rethink and overhaul my understandings. Um, and so it's always kind of funny to me when people sort of dismiss anarchism off of like a half remembered skimming of the conquest of bread or a few seconds of a Chomsky speech. But it's a challenge for me to continue like trying to dig in and dig deeper and try to understand their perspective and where they're coming from so I could better understand my own perspective of anarchism, the critiques and whatnot. And just in general with life, trying to remember that, I live and breathe these topics, and some people, believe it or not, are hearing about Palestine for the first time yesterday, you know? So, all power to all the people, free Palestine. Y'all make sure to drop some donations for the Creators for Palestine so we could get some money up for the PCRF and the MAP and Heal Palestine and the UNRWA. We are very, very close, stunningly close to $1 million to share between those organizations. So check out the link in the bio. Not in the bio, in my bio, yes, but also in the description of this video. I am Paul Madiba Atreides. What a lovely day. Peace.